the day. Today's speaker is Dave Neven, an assistant professor of practice at Oregon State University and the ORTSOC director. He has over 20 years of cybersecurity experience specializing in regulatory compliance, policy, incident response, security operations, computer forensics, disaster recovery, and business continuity. He's very active in higher ed education, information security, regionally and nationally. He has served on the Higher Ed Information Security Council, their leadership committee, and as its co-chair. And we're very pleased to have Dave presenting today on his experience with ORTSOC and a clinical rotations approach to professional cybersecurity education. So welcome, Dave.
Thank you. I'd also like to introduce my co-presenter and partner in crime in all of this, Dr. Rakesh Boba, who is an associate professor in computer science at Oregon State University, and he's one of our cybersecurity team. So,
thank you, Dave.
I have a mic. I have to use a mic. This is very restricting. I tend to wander a bit.
Currently you can pull it out.
Oh, then I'll start singing. It'll be bad. All right. How's everybody today? Yeah, okay, fine. Unresponsive. Yeah, that's what I like in an audience. Okay. A little bit about Oregon State, and I realize this is, U of O. Yeah. But we are, a lot of people don't know some things about us. We're #1 in the U.S. In the number of computer science degrees awarded for the last couple of years. We have the first cybersecurity teaching hospital in the U.S., which I'm going to talk about today. We're the 7th largest college of engineering in the U.S. We have over 10,000 students in our college. We're #1 in the size of cybersecurity faculty in the state. #5 in the U.S. in the percentage of women faculty in our college. And we have the first PhD program in artificial intelligence in the U.S. So little bragging notes about our college. That makes my dean happy. He signs a lot of our bills. We want to keep the dean happy. All right. So what is a cybersecurity teaching hospital? So a little story here, because we based ours off of what happens at our vet med school, our college. And if you all have, how many people have vet pets and go see the vet? Okay, so your vets, during their 4th year of their graduate program, their professional degree program, they end in following passing a licensing exam. Student at OSU's in the vet med school, or any other for that matter, that's pretty uniform across the states, they serve a series of clinical rotations at our small animal or large animal hospital, depending on what they want to specialize in, or both. They can do both. And these rotations are in various areas of specialization that a veterinarian needs to know to adequately perform as a practitioner. And so these students aren't paid, but this is part of their degree program. They're taking this 4-class credit. And so, yeah, it's integrated in curriculum, operated by professionally guided students. And we're thinking, why reinvent the wheel? So we do the same thing at OSU. So our undergraduate curriculum involves a 4-course ORTSOC practicum for our students. ORTSOC, if you don't know, is a real working security operations center that provides services to clients, underserved organizations across the region. And this provides the students in the program with real life hands-on experience at a security operations center. They do this for 10 to 12 hours per week each term. They do rotations in various operational areas. We'll get into that in a minute. And they receive mentorship from working professionals and guest lectures from visiting experts, and hopefully are having fun and enjoying this and figuring out, hey, this is what I want to do in my cybersecurity career, or not in some cases, but in that a little bit as well. I see people taking pictures of the slide deck. I'm happy to share this with anyone afterwards. So Just shoot me an email or we'll provide it. I think, will you all share slides out there? Okay, yeah, cool. All right, starting next year, we're going to be bringing on our graduate program. And this looks really close to the vet med program. So the students will do a 12-month clinical rotation. So not an academic, but a calendar year. It will be full time. So it won't be 10 to 11 hours or so a week. It will be 40 hours a week. They'll serve 17 3-week blocks, and they'll do 10 blocks in each core operational area of the SOC, 6 blocks in an area that they choose to specialize in, and 1 block of vacation because we don't want to kill them. So allow them to take breaks and be with family and other things like that. This very closely mirrors what they do at Vet Med at OSU. And then we want them to do a 6-week externship. We don't think that we can offer all the experience they need. And so we want them to see other environments. And so if you happen to have one of those other environments and you're interested in getting some free or low cost labor, talk to me. So if it's easy driving distance from our campus, then no cost. But if you are in Portland and someone would have to relocate, or if you're in the far eastern side of the state or something, then we'd hope that you would provide housing or something for the student during that period of time. And it wouldn't just be, this could be continual too. So we could rotate through different students and if you're a company that's wanting to hire students, this is a good try before you buy opportunity for you. Mm-hmm. All right, so we currently offer network security monitoring. It's kind of the part of the SOC anyway. Risk maturity assessment, that's not a SOC function traditionally, but it's really needed. Threat hunting and assessment, vulnerability scanning, remote incident response, digital forensics in the near future, penetration testing we're bringing on this year. We're doing our penetration testing rotation for the first time. And we hope to share information with others around. So if you're a big organization, you have a functional SOC, and you just want our threat intelligence, talk to us. We'd be happy to share. We expect you to share back, though. All right. So we're basing it on a consortium model. And our audience, our clients, are K-12 school districts and ESDs, local government, special districts, like fire, water, garbage, etc., higher ed, tribal governments, other nonprofits. Typically groups that are unable to find or afford security staff or commercial security services. These, I think it's important for us to know. Well, I lost my train of thought. Oh, the important thing to remember is that at this point, we can't support an organization that's so small that they don't have an IT person or staff. They have to have a dedicated IT person. I forgot. I'm restricted to standing behind the podium. They have to have an IT person, or we end up being an IT support team. And that's not what we're about. That's not the type of training we want our students to undergo. But a lot of really small organizations, a small city or town, will still have one IT person. So we have to have that person to coordinate our services with. And then we're going to open up the consortium to anybody that wants to join and take advantage of having access to our students, to sharing threat intelligence and things of that nature. So more on that in the future as we develop that out. You want to talk about our history? Please, we're academics. We will blather forever. We're paid. That's what we're paid to do professionally. So, but I was going to say, there's no direct connection. We encourage our students to do internships, but typically MECOP internships are like a half year, 6-month thing. And most of our cybersecurity students do their internships in the summer in 3 months. So we do have a few students in the cybersecurity program that participate in MECOP, and we encourage that. But they would typically have done that before they joined this program.
We find, Jana, that a lot of our CS students typically don't, maybe not as heavily participating in MECOP as other engineering degrees on campus, because they, as my colleague mentioned, they prefer to do summer internships, and then because MECOP kind of delays their graduation. So that's one of the concerns that that we guess that's the reason they kind of do the summer internships. But one of the things that I think Dave is talking about with this grad students, you could do that 6-week externship. Actually, one of the feedbacks we got so far, and we might tweak it a little bit, is that 6 weeks might be too short for anybody to onboard anybody into their environment. So that's one feedback we've heard.
What we want our students to do is do a summer internship before they enter this program. We're strongly encouraging students to do that. That are in our cybersecurity track, and so this might be an opportunity for students to do that summer internship with the company and then come back and do their externship.
Yeah.
Is that a question back there or just a stretch? Okay. Okay. Did that? Okay. Yep.
Yeah, I think this is where we probably will need to have a conversation with our partners on this, is that maybe we should call it something else, because if you say an internship, then they're expecting the
well, that's why we don't call it
yeah. So we might have to kind of manage expectations that, okay, this is not about them coming and doing some work, but sort of them learning your environment a little bit, right? But then we have to make a case, why is it useful for you, right? Those kind of stuff. So we are kind of working on those stuff, but we know we need to tweak it a little bit.
And one thing to bear in mind also, that these students will have spent full time working in a SOC, and so our typical ramp up time for our students with our tooling is about 2 weeks, and so they might have more practical skills than the typical internship you bring in. So I think it's worth a conversation.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to you in history.
Hey, thanks, Dave. I think I alluded to some of this in the panel earlier today, but this effort, maybe not many people realize the history of ORTSOC and the history of the OCCOE are intertwined, kinda, right? Because in 2014 is when we actually had first cybersecurity students. Dave was the CISO at OSU at the time, and he managed OSU's SOC, and we've hired students into the program, right? That was the first year, and then 2015 is when the idea of ORTSOC was conceived, and it actually happened because of the OCCOE in some sense, because when the conversations around creating this statewide center of excellence were happening, these meetings typically happened in Salem. That's where the former CIO of the state and the former CISO would gather people, which meant that Dave and I needed to drive an hour up and an hour back. And I knew Dave when I joined in 2014, and we've kind of, that's how, we started hiring students. But these car rides gave us an opportunity to talk more about these problems. He's struggling to hire people and keep them because cybersecurity in such high demand, and anyone he hires, he would lose in a couple of years. And I'm actually looking for opportunities to give my students more hands-on experience in security, right, that I couldn't provide in a class. And so we were talking about these problems back and forth in these drives every time we drove from Salem to these meetings. And that's when the idea of ORTSOC was actually conceived. So the history of ORTSOC and the history of CCOE that we talked about this morning are kind of intertwined. And we started socializing this idea at that time to that community that was talking about the statewide center. And that's what Representative Nathanson was alluding to, that this idea of a teaching hospital now really caught fire within the community as well. So 2017 is when we first did a test run. We didn't have a program. We just gave a formal credit for students doing projects in the SOC for Dave. I think one of our first project was a risk assessment for one of our subunits on campus. So after at the time, actually, the ORTSOC original idea was poised to launch. I mean, we had the former folks at the state level ready to fund and get this started, but some personal changes happened both at the state level and at the university level at the same time. So that kind of set us back a little bit. But in 2018, finally, within OSU, there is this organization called Impact Studio. The way to think about it is it's like an incubator, but for internal ventures. So Oregon State internal ventures. So we became an Impact Studio project, or an Impact Studio, what do we call that? I think it's a project, right? An Impact Studio, yeah, Impact Studio initiative in 2018. And 2018 we started, but yeah, we became 2020. We did a pilot this year. We are still in pilot, and we are going up into the scale up soon. But this was critical for us because as you can see, the initial funding for the pilot to get us off the ground, because setting up a SOC and hiring the professionals to guide the students is an expensive enterprise. So we needed about $1 million in seed funding to get started. Should I continue with this, or do you want to take over? Okay. One of the things, Dave already knew this anecdotally. For all the students that he hired into the SOC, the computer science security focused students, when they go out into the job market, and they were getting a higher salary, and they were actually getting into a more senior role than our students fresh out of school. When we became an internal Impact Studio incubation initiative, they did some data crunching. I think this is Southwest, Western states. They looked at all the job advertisements in cybersecurity, and you'll notice that if you have a 1-year experience, or the job calls requiring 1-year experience, they almost double when you look at jobs that require 0 experience, right? So the opportunities double with 1-year experience, and the salary with 1-year experience is actually almost a $40K bump in salary from 0 experience to. So this is basically our value proposition for the kind of ORTSOC surrounded programs we are doing. Typically, even though the students typically work 10 to 12 hours, which was very similar to what they worked in the SOC, OSU SOC, they see similar benefits because they kind of have similar experience, even though it's not full time. And with masters, this will be definitely a full-time experience. So this is kind of the value proposition for this experiential learning that we sort of are able to support with data. I'll do this one and then hand back. So one of the things I talked about is operating costs. So in 2020, when we became an initiative for the internal incubator, we had to raise about $1 million to get the effort off the ground. I mean, half of it is actually for the physical facilities for the Security Operations Center, which is still under construction. But the other half was hiring people to act as professional guides. Even though students are providing the service, there are professionals overseeing them to make sure that the students get the right experience, and that our customers have the right experience. In the pilot phase, we've hired a few more professional mentors, so our costs are a bit higher. But really, what I want to highlight is this is an expensive enterprise, and having this state center of excellence fund part of this is a really helping us scale up faster. Dave, do you want to take over?
Yeah, 5 minutes. Okay, we will scroll through this fast. We have a few student testimonials. It's liked a lot by the students who benefited in it.
In the pilot year, we had about 20 students, 28 students total last year. Yeah.
And our clients like it as well. So we have a small city that's a part of the metropolitan Portland area. That was our first client. We have a rural educational service district on the eastern side of the state. I think the open source lab wouldn't mind us listening publicly as a client. At OSU, they have their own private network connection that's distinct from universities and need monitoring. And so I want to save time for questions. So what does it take to do this? Of course, it takes vision, executive support. We couldn't do this without support of our dean, without support from the provost, school administrative support. It's been very, I was shocked at how much support we've received on this. It was just really heartening to see how many of our peers within the school were supportive of this program. You have to find cybersecurity professionals to do this, and all know how hard it is to hire cybersecurity professionals. And then time. If we didn't have, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes longer than you think to do these sort of things.
When we started, we thought we'd get this off the ground in 2 years.
Yeah. So, and then COVID happened, which didn't help. All right. Where do we go from here? We're launching our grad program next year, of course. And I would emphasize that we think that we need pros at all levels. If we're using the teaching hospital as a model, then a hospital is a perfect analogy for this. We hope with a graduate level professional degree to produce the future doctors, equivalent of doctors, but there needs to be nurses, technicians in various areas, etc. And that spreads across the whole of our educational programs across the state. We want licensing and certification to go along with that professional degree. And if we're successful, we hope others adopt this model. And we have some really strong industry support now, but we'd love to have more. So looking for that as well. Okay, so this is a summary of us. Time for questions.
When we think of SOC, we think of the technical capacity that they're adding to these organizations. I'm curious if you offer anything to the clients that takes it to that level of communicating the threats there, or communicating what's happening, whether it's communicating to their board, patients at their hospital, students at the university. We see that this is the place that some of our clients step on themselves sometimes. So
Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely. And of course, we step outside of the traditional SOC bounds when we do risk assessments. And so those risk assessments are prepared. They're guided by someone who's a former CISO who did lots of risk assessments over his career. And I'm not the only former CISO in the room there. And so they're prepared for an audience such as a board. We provide statistical information to our clients about, the type of alerts we're seeing. The biggest thing I think we teach, most of the students come into this fourth year having had a lot of experience either through OSU SEC, our security club, where they compete in competitions, or through the other classes they've taken as part of our security curriculum. They pick up the technical aspects incredibly fast. We originally planned on having a 4-week onboarding. So we've cut that back to 2.5 weeks. We just don't need to spend that much time teaching them the tools, teaching them the right queries in our system and things like that. They catch that stuff really quick. It's the soft skills that we build out. And so, one of our rotations is threat intelligence gathering and distribution, and they have to do a weekly newsletter that goes out to our clients and shares with them, some of the threats that we're monitoring for, but that they need to be aware of. So. And they sometimes have to pick up the phone and call an IT director and say, hey, we found ransomware on your network. And that's not an easy thing for them to do.
And we actually have the students do it.
Yeah.
It's not, they were other professional mentors that do the communication. The students actually handle the communications to our clients as well.
Yeah, and we're talking a real phone with a cord on it. And the students, that's probably the most thing that they are nervous about. So we have to practice that before they actually make the call. But yeah. That one's really tough, and that's a more subtle thing. But I think the best way we set up a good culture within the SOC. But we have lots of guest lecturers who come and talk about the importance of that and the ways that they've established a culture in the companies that they work for. And the students, they're not blind to it. They really respect the importance of that aspect of it. And the longer they serve in the SOC and interact with our clients who are developing those cultures at their organization, the more they realize the importance of it. And so a lot of it, at this point, we've had the good, we're in a good place where we are being very selective about the clients we bring on during pilot. So we have, IT directors that are supportive of the program and want the students to learn. And so they're not afraid to interact with the students when they're having these conversations and offer coaching on these areas and come in and talk occasionally about, establishing a culture of security at the organization. So the word's getting out there. It's hard to fit everything into a 9-month period.
I wanted to add just a quick thing on this is that there are two kinds of things. One is a security culture, which actually the students, one of the first things we try to do within our class, like the mindset and the culture. The other thing is the work culture, because one of the things that we are also trying to improve is open, accepting work environments. And that's the other thing that we work with our students on. I mean, they're all, we don't need to do a lot, but these are subtle changes that it's hard to measure, but we think we're sort of going in the right direction. Thank you.
I think we're out of time.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So we do have a quick 15-minute break, but before the break, if you could please provide some feedback, we'd much appreciate it. Let's get this up.